discussion of the self-defense shooting in Richmond that happened a couple weeks ago. When I first heard about it, I was at the gun show in Richmond, and I got a cell phone call from one of our members who had heard from another member the details. That other member was actually at the scene. He wasn't part of the scene. In other words, he wasn't part of the shooting, but he was there immediately afterwards. So we got the news right away that pretty much the details were pretty close to accurate at that time. I had the fact that it was a gun owner openly carrying, of all things, sort of a Western-style 1870-something revolver. 73. And you can tell I don't have any of those. But and that the shooting was indeed appeared to be justified, and that the bad guy didn't look like he was in very good shape at the end of the shooting. So I was aware of this. Before I tend to run out too quickly on VA alert with things, I do like to check my facts, because it's not good to run out with something and then have to come back and say, well, geez, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. So I waited a little bit, but I was forewarned, if you will, what was coming. And in turn, we got the confirmation from the media, and I had a little time to speak directly with the person that had got to the scene shortly thereafter and got more details. I put out what information I had at the time, and I'll review the information once I get to the next part, where the phone rings, and the next thing I know, it's actually the person who had done the self-defense shooting. He called and said, "I heard you're looking for me." And I said, well, who are you? But because I wasn't sure who this was. But anyhow, he proceeded to share with me a lot of the details of what happened. He wanted to remain anonymous, but he felt it was important that everybody understand the facts. The press had twisted them, and towards the end, the press kind of got the message after watching our alerts, and the Richmond Times-Dispatch went out again and said a different reporter. And this time, he really did a bang-up job, unlike some of the earlier reports. Of course, there, you're kind of stuck with what the police are saying, and the police, in many ways, were trying to protect in this case, they were trying to protect the gun owner. Because I think they felt that truly had a self-defense shooting, and having viewed the tapes, I can say it was pretty clear. So consequently, they were trying to be a little quiet about who this guy was and try to protect him. And he really didn't want to be on camera and all that. So he wanted to keep being anonymous. So anyhow, we talked. He gave me the information, and then I was about to put that out. And then he called and said, "Hey, I'm going to be, that store is reopening. I'm going to be there. And you can actually watch the video, the uncut video of this whole thing." And there were, it turns out there were cameras from all different angles, so you could view all kinds of things from different angles. So I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." I contacted Dennis O'Connor, and the two of us went down and met with the gentleman, and met with the owner of the store, who was there. He'd been shot twice. And he was there, and limping around a little bit, but and we went back and watched the video. Now, I'm trying to get a copy of that video, and I've got some ideas on that, but I'm working on trying to do that. Right now, it's a technical thing of trying to get the data from their monitoring system onto something removable, and something that would have, because you got like 6 little mini images, and you can click on one and blow it up to the full size of the screen if you want to, basically in essence zoom in on one particular angle. But one would have to kind of go through it a few times to do that. I'd probably just do it like 6 times, leaving one view completely on the screen for the 2 or 3 minutes, and then go back and do the other and somehow splice it together. But it's going to be a little bit of work to do that. The video was a real eye-opener, and I was really glad I had a chance to see this, and I did my best to let people know what transpired on this. I will say that going into that video, as we were watching it in real time, ticking up as the moment was approaching, I have to admit my heart rate went up a little bit looking at that, knowing that very shortly, as that camera was focused on that door, death was going to walk through that door, and all hell was going to tear loose in no time flat. Even though I knew it wasn't going to happen, it was just the anticipation of what monstrosity was about that it was going to walk through that door and what they were going to attempt to do to others. And then the video was incredible that way. Sure enough, you had some people at the counter lined up, including the person, I'll just call the gun owner, that was there, standing in line to buy something. And about a 12, 13-year-old boy went to the door and opened the door leaving, and he was standing there looking at something in his hand, and I don't remember what that something was, if it was a cell phone or something he bought, but he stood there for a second looking at it. And then all of a sudden, here comes this guy, and he walks right by the kid with the door open. He reaches inside somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it was. And next thing you know, he's tugging down with one hand on a mask on his face, and he's got a gun up in the air, as I recall, held kind of sideways. And he yells. There's no audio on the tape, unfortunately. My understanding was he just yelled, "Everybody get down." And before, everybody's kind of looking at him on the tape like, what? You know, it takes a second to even sink in what you're looking at. And he no sooner yelled that, and he immediately turned over and shot the owner twice. I mean, the owner had no chance to even respond. It was basically, everybody down, boom, boom. I mean, just like that. And when you looked at slow motion on there, what you realized was there were two teenage boys, 14 years old, probably in that range. They had just purchased something. They were the last ones to purchase something, standing at the counter when this guy comes in behind them and basically starts yelling everybody down. And then those shots were literally, I mean, I think this kid has got to be deaf in one ear at this point, because it was literally right about here, and his head was here. Those bullets had to miss him by an inch or two. I mean, the guy just didn't care that he was about to end up murdering a young boy who had done nothing. He had no concerns of that at all. And then in the video, you can see the gun owner basically wincing at the noise, because he was very close to that shot too. You know, again, nobody's got any hearing protection on. And he immediately went down and drew his revolver from the Western-style holster that he had on his leg. And as he was drawing, apparently he told the bad guy, "Drop your gun." I don't know that I would have bothered warning a bad guy, but he did. And the bad guy, then seeing him, opened fire on him and ran to the back of the store while shooting. People dropped. Everybody dropped. Everybody hit the floor. There was nobody standing except the bad guy, who, as we watched this, we were amazed at how he walked around, just in some ways in the back, sort of nonchalant. Here's somebody returning fire to him, and yet he knows that he has to be a little careful, but it was I don't know if you want to call it arrogance. You know, I own this place. I don't know what it was. It was the strangest thing. But just the way he was strutting around, and he made several attempts to get to the front of the store where the shooter was, the gun owner. We don't know exactly why at that point, but he tried. And as he passed twice, there were two different guys on the ground. He walked by with his revolver, and he aimed it at them. They were just laying there on the ground, on their stomachs like this, doing nothing, not saying a word, not threatening him in any way. They were just trying to stay alive. And he aimed that revolver right at the back of their head, execution style. And then he would realize again, it's like his brain would come back and say, "Oh yeah, I've got somebody over here trying to shoot me." So he didn't pull the trigger on those. But I can tell you, those guys were within an inch of losing their lives. And they'd done nothing. This guy was a cold-blooded killer. Nothing mattered. He would kill children, whatever was there, without provocation, because nobody provoked this guy. Everybody did as they were told. He said, "Get down." They all got down. The store owner was down, but he was behind the counter, having been shot twice somewhere in the abdominal area. The gun owner, meanwhile, had gotten behind some barrels full. There were these, typical barrels like this, full of ice and drinks, and there was a row of them right in front of the counter. And he had gotten down behind those as some kind of cover. I don't know